win the spelling bee championship too. Now, once you learn the me as them all, you will know then how do we connect with everything. That brings us to the word Ramadan. Now, again, we go to it etymologically as a linguist. What is Ramadan? Ramadan starts with the word Rama. Rama means pebble, hard, heat hardened stones. Because Ramadan was always in the summer in the ancient Arabic calendar. Now it's a different story. Now, the reason for that is that you experience hardship, deny yourself all the things that you have taken for granted. Food, and every pleasure from sex to romance to smelling roses to everything. Not because that you're denying the plentifulness of everything around you, but so you can grow your consciousness that you are so dependent and that you're so much part of everything that you have to appreciate that. And how do we appreciate it? Now I'm going to link it back to the word pronoun in the pronomen Latin English languages with the Arabic language. In Arabic, the word for pronoun is, anybody wants to guess? Yeah, they use it in Persian too. Zamir, or dhamir, to pronounce it more properly. And dhamir, or zamir, is also the same word for consciousness. So in the Arabic word zamir, pronoun, there is no pro or con. There's no opposition. But rather, the wholeness of being conscious and aware of the totality. So if we can think of about these words etymologically, all the codes are in there. If we only have the ability to leave the me, jump to us, forget the them, and embrace everybody else in the all. Me as them all. Thank you.
Aziza?
So I think your question is a really critical one. In fact, it's so critical that on June 15 this year, the world's top religious leaders issued a rare statement and a rare appeal to ask people to reach out and build friendships with the followers of all religions. That was the Dalai Lama, that is the Pope, that is a number of religious leaders. And so I think people this is on our minds in a really, really big way. And I appreciate all the wisdom that was shared before me, so I won't go more into it. I loved what you had to say. I think that we can really, so last night was one of the odd nights of the month of Ramadan, and during the month of Ramadan, Muslims read different sections of the Quran, so they break it down into sections. Last night was section 23, and the idea is that you finish or you complete the reading of the entire Quran from cover to cover, from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. So last night in section 23, we really dove into a number of stories, but I think one in particular really stands out in this particular conversation. So one of the stories is about Satan and Adam. Adam, God's blessings be upon him. So God commands Satan to bow to Adam after God had created Adam. And so Satan's response is to say, is actually arrogance. Is to say, you created me from a better substance than what you created Adam. I will not submit. And it's Satan's arrogance that gets him thrown out of God's grace. Literally thrown out of God's grace. And so the Quran over and over again tells us that we need to contemplate the stories that are there, because it's stories for people who think. And so I would go back to the story, and how many times do we allow our arrogance to dictate our actions, or our arrogance to make us believe that we are somehow better than another group of people who have another theology or have another ethnic background or something that is different from our own. And what's also beautiful is that this same section at the very end, which isn't even the end of the entire chapter that you stop at, it gives you the antidote to arrogance. Anybody guess what the antidote is? Jihad, you can't answer. Humility, really close. It's gratitude. The Quran literally says to fill your heart with gratitude. And it's gratitude that will help you replace that arrogance. And so you have stories in this same section about even the prophet David, and about how he was a judge between two people, and he had the best of intentions, but he made a snappy judgment. And while the judgment holds, God's literally commentary on this situation is he tells David to not follow his whims and his arrogance, lest he not be able to determine what is truly just and where the truth is. And so I think it comes back to sometimes us, many times us. We always, many times we will say it's this reason or that reason, and yes, absolutely, there's a lot of complexity and oversimplification that happens, and that's an important part of how we miss the answer to this question. But we are also a critical piece of that question. And so being able to say and prioritize and say, we will build institutions like Bayan Claremont, where theology and thought leadership and modeling and mentoring and creating an infrastructure around people so that they have people that they can connect back to and ask questions of and be challenged by is a really critical piece of what it means to take back this narrative so that we can go back to our text, go back to this story or many other stories that are literally grounded in our faith traditions and reclaim them. Not allow other people to say that they are the only true people who can look at the Quran or look at the Bible or look wherever and have their claim to truth. Because one of my mentors used to say, the late Dr. Maher Hatut, is that, may God bless his soul, is that when you put God in a box, you lose sight of God. And when we say that God has to be this or God has to be that or that you have to follow in exactly this way, you lose the essence of truly of what it is to be a follower. And so I think we especially can go back to our text and our wisdom, but that we own a piece of this puzzle. We can't just say, oh, it's those people over there. We have to say, okay, what about me? Where do I fit in this picture and where does my voice matter? I'll end with this. I was in Jerusalem in 2005, and I told you already, I come from a Christian mother and a Muslim dad, and I saw what Israel and Palestine have what's been going on, and I grew up with it, and I felt ripped apart by it. And so we were there in 2005, and we went because my sister was like, we never really crossed the border. It was like this untouchable place. We couldn't go. And so she convinced there's 4 siblings, to go and just see where my dad was from. Because I crossed the border once, but I'd never actually seen where my dad was from. And so we went on this journey, and I remember walking in the streets of Jerusalem, and my uncle had told me that you feel the holiness when you walk through the streets. I felt nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. And I walk into the Dome of the Rock, and all of a sudden I touch the rock, and I am overcome with emotion, and I am overcome with just these strong feelings, and I can't recognize them. And I realized over time that I was furious. I was angry. I was angry at the followers of Judaism. I was angry at the followers of Islam, at the followers of Christianity, and anything or anyone who would say that somehow violence is okay. And I wanted nothing to do with it. But what I realized there is that I have everything to do with it. That owning my voice and saying, yet this actually is what I know of Islam, is a critical piece of Islam. And it's a critical piece of who I am. But unless I own my voice and I go back to the text and I am inspired by it and I look back to it and I don't let someone else interpret it, then I am actually complacent and allowing other people to dominate the narrative.
Father.
You put me in the horrendous position of following Aziz. I would just say ditto. Ditto to everything you said. So your initial question was, what went wrong? Right? What went wrong? Why is religion the cause of all this violence? My friend and colleague here, Jihad, said, no, it's not. And I would concur with you. I would concur with you. Rabbi Beliak talked about the concept of victimization. And I think that's true. Your people have done this to my people for 100 years, therefore I have to act in such a way towards you. That type of mentality, which gets us nowhere whatsoever. And Rabbi Gottlieb and Aziza have both pointed out the concept of true religion, if you will. True religion. Jihad also listed the category of Christian interfighting. I'm going to add another segment to that, Jihad, where the issues in those fraternal fights, if you will, was not religion, but something else. You mentioned Northern Ireland, for example. Anglicans and Catholics, both Christians, although not acting in a very Christian manner towards one another. The real issue there was economics, cloaked in religion, as many violent situations today are cloaked in religion, when religion is not the main problem. I would like to offer the example again of Rwanda in Africa. Christian country, Anglican and Catholic, where Christianity went out the window and ethnicity dominated. Hutus and Tutsis. People forgot they were Christian. They were all too busy worried about which tribe they belonged to, and they hacked each other to death. Thousands of them. Thousands of them. There was no true religion there. People forgot their Christianity. They set it aside for the sake of ethnic superiority. Sadly, we have to admit that there are priests and nuns who've been taken to the tribunal in The Hague, charged with genocide for leading this type of thing. How could someone who's a priest, how could someone who's a nun put their religion on the shelf, put their Christianity on the shelf, in order for their ethnicity to dominate? So I think we have to look at our texts and what our texts are truly teaching us. And don't let everybody interpret for us. As he said, you're right. We have to take hold of those texts. We have to wrestle with those texts and apply them to our daily life. And if each and every one of us is willing to do that, then I think the world will be a much better place.
Thank you, Nancy. If I could just say one word in summary, which I think is a theme that ran through everyone, that true religion is not the problem, but could be part of the solution.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
I also wanted to add something to all the brilliant statements that have been made, just to tease out some things that were being said. I like that new acronym that you created. I would put it very simply that one of the problems in our thinking is either or thinking, rather than both and thinking. In other words, in the West, we have to prove in dialogue we're not really even communicating with each other. We're trying to prove who's right and who's wrong, and we assume that there's one right way and the other must be wrong, rather than saying, as we find in Eastern traditions, both and. There's a world of complexities. Everyone has part of the truth and contributes to it. I just want to say also that what Chaim said about victimization, I think this is a very important point that he's making. I'd just like to tease it in another direction. Sometimes when people get together who've suffered, they become victims, and each one tries to out-victimize the other. You think you suffered? Look at me, you know. And they don't really hear each other, and that wound is carried out and becomes aggression and identification with the aggressor. We act toward the others just the way we were treated. So the antidote to that, I like the way Aziza said, the antidote of gratitude rather than just humility. It's all mixed together, but the attitude, I think the antidote to victimization is the ability to create empathy through truly dialoguing with the other. When I get to know somebody, I begin to hear them more and their stories become my stories and vice versa, and we truly see the image of God in the other, the beauty in the other. And I'll just end with this. If we study our texts truly to become more evolved, we discover so many pearls. I mean, the word for God in the Torah is Eya, I shall be, I will be that I will be. There's no descriptions that my God is better than your God, God and truth. It's just I am. It's a mystery. It's a presence. And if we can resonate with that, meditate on that, that's powerful. And the last thing is just the idea of the Sabbath or the seventh year. There's a great secret there. The whole week, we can be aggressive, competitive, but we have to balance that, our consciousness, and get back to who we truly are. On the Sabbath, we give up everything. It's God's day, so to speak. We give up ownership, and we share, and we get connected. We meditate the whole day on God. And the seventh year, it's the Shemitah year, all the land is turned over to poor people, because we acknowledge that we don't really own anything. It's a gift. We have gratitude for it. We learn to share. If each one of us would take into account the values that these stories create for us, the seventh year is a magical concept, that we give it over to the poor people. We don't own it. That year we study instead. We allow the ecology of the land to be revivified, and we realize that it's an antidote for our materialism, for our greed. We share. But it takes work. As I said in the beginning, true religion is a beautiful gift, but the human condition can bastardize that by bringing our unevolved qualities to it and choose verses that fulfill our own evil impulses. So may we all be granted the strength to truly believe, to truly have faith, and that every day is a day of growth. It's your journey toward truth. We're never there, perhaps till we die, and we're reborn again, a cycle after cycle after cycle, hopefully with more consciousness.
Thank you. Okay, there's no question that we are in a very special and interesting and a scary time of our life in our country. And without any question, what's happening in this country is affecting the world. And one of these is racism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia, and all of the above, plus a list of more things. How do you foresee the future of this country and the future of the world? We start with other things. You complain.
Well, I am not a prophet, but I choose to believe that this too will pass. The current situation will pass, that we will weather the storm together with people like my colleagues here leading the way, and all of you joining in the effort. And I think if we all do that, if we all bear witness to the essential dignity of the individual, if we're willing to accept others, we may not necessarily agree with them, but if we accept others and enter into a dialogue with them civilly, not violently, civilly, then I think we all have a chance to change things.
Next year, we're going to bring your mom and
I'm sure she could tell you better than I. Yeah, and they're absolutely challenging times. I look around and I think, what am I going to do to make sure that my children have the best possible future that they can have and the best possible reality right now that they can have? I was at the Islamic Center of Southern California where in October during Open Mosque Day. So during Open Mosque Day, Steve and Bishop Gilliland and Judy Gilliland will tell you they went to, I think, 13 or maybe 19 mosques that day. These mosques will open their doors and say, come, we will give you a tour and you can see what we're all about. And so I was there and we had set up these tours, and and really gotten everything ready so that we could talk about the American Muslim identity, talk about our philosophy around how we raise our children and what the building is there for. And so we're having all these beautiful tours and things are going well. We put a lot of effort into organizing this. And all of a sudden I noticed that the Deputy Chief of Counterterrorism just walked through the door. Now I know Chief Downing, he's now retired, new chief. But this is back in October, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, Open Mosque Day is a really great day, and we don't have the number of people in this building to justify why he's in this building right now. And so something felt a little bit off to me. Like he's in that space a lot. He has been in this space a lot. He was here last year. And I remember thinking something's off. Well, lots of LAPD people walk in and, they're smiling and connecting, and people around in the leadership are thanking them profusely for being there. And I'm like, they're thanking them a lot. I know that you're filled with gratitude, but this feels a little bit different. It turns out, as the details came out, there was somebody who had been calling the mosque, saying really awful things and threatening to kill people at the mosques, and literally saying awful things too. The LAPD looked into the hateful calls and found out that this guy literally had a full arsenal and weaponry that he intended to use at the mosque, and they made the arrest. So it was an important thing of partnership and being able to figure out how we can keep our people safe. But at that moment, safety was the issue that was ringing in my head. Here I am, this mother of two little boys, 3 and 6, and I was spending time away from them because this was an important thing in my community, and it's the kind of community I want them to grow up in. And I kept thinking and asking myself, are they safe? Are they even safe in this building? This is a building that they run in the halls all the time, and this is our home. It's a place that's important, they love the playground and everything else. And safety, was really the big thing that was on my mind. But then I was like, you know what, just keep moving, And so I developed this goodness, and I knew that I had to just put one foot in front of the other and just do what needed to be done. And then Rabbi Goldberg, Susan Goldberg of Wilshire Boulevard Temple picked up the phone, and I got a number of calls from her, and she said, you know what, I'm there for you, I'm really here for you, and I'm going to be there on Sunday with my family. This happened right away. And she literally showed up to the Islamic Center with her family. And it's that relationship that shifted things for me. Because all of a sudden I realized someone was there, she had my back. She had a lot of the people in that room's backs. And that there was a whole community that was there for us. That we didn't have to feel so alone. And that these are interesting and really, really perplexing, terrifying times, but we don't have to feel like we're alone all the time. She then took the extra mile and continued to ask questions, continued to give us resources, and make sure that we just felt safe in our own space. And that is a treasure. And that's really the best possible thing we can do for each other right now, is to just be there for each other. So I don't know what the future is, but I know that it will look a lot brighter if we can literally be there through the thick and the thin, whether the issue is there and whether it affects us directly or not, but that we all stand a lot to gain when we're there for each other.
Have you seen The Wall? Oh, surprise. Yeah, when Donald Trump said that he was going to build the wall, everybody was looking at a literal wall south of the border. That's not the wall. The walls that have been built are already rising rapidly and very high and separating our communities. Those are the walls of hatred, the walls of prejudice. Look at the statistics on the hate crime against various communities. Those could not have happened unless there were walls. For more than 230 years, the country that was dreamed by the founding father the political system that was established, which at one point was a dream for Plato. It was implemented to some extent by Prophet Muhammad in Medina, was finally becoming a reality on the shores of North America when we were away from the aristocracy of Europe and from their political repression. So the founding fathers were able to build a system, not only of checks and balances, but also of a diversity and inclusivity. And that's when the only wall that they built was to build a wall against European aristocracy and destroy everything and build bridges among the various communities here in America. And we were crisscrossing those bridges among the various communities in America. That's what made America great. Now, in this new era, I think it's very frightful because a lot of us are still under the illusion. The wishful thinking is that let's hope it doesn't get to that point. But it does at every level and on every plane. To use a bit of a racist language, just to make you aware of it, is that the white man is undoing everything the black man had done in the last 8 years. The only motive for that has to be racism, nothing else. For them to take even so much of a risk that with the Congressional Budget Office is telling them that the end result could be the deprivation of up to 24 million people left without insurance. They're still going ahead with it because they're still building the walls. A democracy is only as good as the people who build it. If we are to build that good democracy, let me correct that, if we are to build on continuously on the democracy that our founding fathers had established, then I think we have to become more aware and conscious citizens. For a person with a kind of mentality that is representing us from the White House pulpit in the international community, it is a source of shame for every American. We, if not the Russians, that's a different story. If not the Russians, if we have elected her, shame on us. Because it is turning every stone on its head for what democracy ought to stand for. So these times are critical. The responsibility lies upon every single one of us. We better wake up through that awakened consciousness. Thank you.
I think education is the answer. And I'm going to stop there because I think a shorter answer will make the break fast time sooner. I'm just hungry. So, but I think education
You have to go with the Shia religion.
in the Shia tradition, you know, some of you might not know, in the Shia tradition, there's an extra 20-minute wait after the sun sets, just to make sure that the sun went down. In the Sunni world, as soon as that sun goes below the visible horizon, we start eating. So.
I think I agree with jihad education is extremely important, but it has to be a deep education because human beings are fundamentally irrational. Under the guise of rationality, there's self-interest that always has to be confronted, and that's what religion, good religion does. It makes you become more conscious if you work at it. I think we're at a time of crisis, as Dr. Namazake points out, but the word for crisis means really opportunity. The darkness, if everything is fine, we're very complacent, but because there's darkness, we're forced to awaken and see how we can overcome it. So, and that takes individual responsibility with all of us, because as I mentioned before, groupthink is